Welcome to the next edition of Atomic Ergo. I'm your host, Earl Ray, and we are super excited to have Matt Gooch, a CPED, and you're going to find out what that is in just a second because I just learned about it and it is really interesting. He is currently the Vice President of Product and Innovation at Superfeet Worldwide, and we are really excited to have you. How you doing, Matt? Good to see you.
I'm doing great. I'm
Good.
fired up to be here too. So really appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
What a great name, Superfeet. I love that.
It is a good name.
Yeah, so Matt has a BS in exercise science from Furman University, master's in exercise science from Middle Tennessee State University. He is a CPED, which is a certified Pedorthist. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Am I saying it right? Okay. All right. I was nervous about it. You know, listen, I'm from Poosier Ridge, so you can't have too much of an expectation from me. And the reason that I was having a hard time with it is because obviously, most folks are familiar with podiatrist.
Sure.
So this is really an interesting thing for me. So I'm really happy to learn more about this. Board certified in that, level 1 certified coach with USA Track and Field. Certified strength coach, level 1 with USA Track and Field as well. Currently the Vice President of Product and Innovation for Superfeet Worldwide. Previously was at the state of Tennessee with something that I'm pretty interested in your background, workers' comp. You were a workers' comp specialist.
Yeah.
And then certainly member of several boards, member of the editorial board of the academic journal Footwear Science, member of the board of directors for the PFA. So, goodness gracious, with all that being said, obviously, you're successful in your career and your education, your certification, all that is evidence of that. You have a clear focus on health and wellness. So my first question to our guests usually focuses on, kind of how did you get here? Who motivated you? What led you down your career path, Matt?
Man, that's a great question. I mean, we could spend the entirety of the podcast just on that. I have a very winding road to get to where I've been. I grew up in East Tennessee, so not too far from where you are now. But I tell people I love talking to young people. There's so much pressure on young people today. They feel like they have to know everything and have everything figured out by 25 and making $1 million a year. And if you're not doing that and the social media influencer, you don't know what you're doing with your life. I'm like, hey, 4 times in my life, I would have told you I was 100% positive. I knew what I was doing for the rest of my life, and I haven't been right yet. So when you start talking about who's been influential in my life, there's been a whole bunch of people. I've been incredibly fortunate to be around a lot of wonderful, inspiring people. Certainly several members of my family, but just for the timely nature of it, I'll highlight my grandmother, who we just lost about a month and a half ago. She was 102. She lived a heck of a life. She was a nurse in World War II. She was one of the first flight attendants as the U.S. Airlines started gearing up and going. And she was just a grab life by the horns, pull up your bootstraps and get things done. No excuses, no frills. But above anything, she just did an amazing job for all of her grandkids of instilling confidence. If you work hard and you do what you're supposed to do, you'll find success, even if it may not be the success that you intended to find. So work hard, be prepared, and do the right thing. As I got older, certainly I had a variety of coaches. I played sports all the way through high school, all the way through college, that really had a lot of influential, influential and inspirational experiences with them. Just learning how to work hard, delay gratification, work for personal goals, team goals, all of those things. Specifically, when you start talking into kind of the general allied health field, I had a physical therapist named Mick Larrabee that I worked with. I managed to hurt myself a lot. I was really good at that. I was incredibly effective at it. Man, I just really enjoyed working with him and my kind of therapeutic recoveries through multiple years in high school. And just in that interaction, I was like, well, clearly I'm going to go to a PT school. I'm going to follow this track. I love this, and started going through that track all the way through my senior year of college. And did my first PT school interview, and I was like, you know what I don't want to do? Go to PT school. Instead, I want to coach college cross country and track. And that's what I want to do. I want to be on the human performance side of things. So my undergrad, as you mentioned, my master's, both kind of in that line. And then as I kind of progressed, I was like, well, it's kind of hard to just snap your fingers and get a coaching job, especially a grad assistant coaching job, where if you want to get your master's, you want school to pay for it while you're coaching. So it took me a while to figure that out. And in the intermediary, I needed a job. And so I moved back to Tennessee from South Carolina, where Furman is, Greenville, South Carolina, and got a job with the state of Tennessee as a workers' compensation specialist.
Furman's a great school, by the way.
Yeah, hey, you don't have to convince me.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
And so that experience to me was it was amazing to be able to see, you know, nothing came to me as a workers' compensation specialist if it wasn't disputed, right? So these weren't cases that everybody was just like, yeah, this is clearly, everybody in the company saw this person fall, everything's fine. And so it's when the insurance company had rejected the claim is basically, so I was there to kind of settle these disputes. And so we would have to read doctors' reports and notations and talk to attorneys on both sides and all of those types of things. And what I really found myself doing was helping the other workers' compensation specialists really think through and establish like likely cause of injury. So being able to help position that, add context for falls and specific types of trauma or body parts and mechanisms of injury and things of that nature. And so it was a really great experience to be able to have that direct connection and really see how hard it is for some workers to really just be able to have the means to get better. Because the average everyday worker, you know, if they have this injury, they may not have full coverage from healthcare. They may not be able to out of pocket pay to have these things taken care of. And when they're really struggling, it can be a huge drain on everything about their life. And so it was hard work, but it was very fulfilling work. And certainly when we start talking about the value that, you know, a company like Ergonauts can provide, it is so deeply connected to things like preventing those workers' comp claims on the front end and the value
We tell people, employers all the time, a little bit of investment up front saves everybody heartache, hurt, and money on the back end. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about the training and education that you went through in order to be the
Sure.
you know, to do the CPED, because that's fascinating.
Yeah. So it's in the kind of allied healthcare field, it is a kind of foot and lower extremity specialty where the primary modalities are using things like footwear, modifying footwear, in some cases, fitting for and custom footwear. And so, and also foot orthoses and insoles. And so those are the primary ways that we help people get better. And ultimately, it's really a combination. You have your kind of traditional, we'll call it academic work, where you've got to learn stuff and pass tests or prove that you know things. A lot of anatomy and physiology, a lot of kind of textbook knowledge on a variety of different either injuries, injury mechanisms, you know, but then also you have to have the physical technical skills to be able to do things. So whether that's hands-on assessment, whether that is potentially make, manufacture, modification of insoles, custom foot orthoses, and footwear. So there's definitely a artisanal craftsmanship element to it that for some people comes really naturally, and other people it takes a little bit more time to learn and get a hold of. So yeah, but it's a wonderful blend of kind of art and science across the board there.
Well, the Ergonauts love your company, Superfeet. They have been raving fans for over 20 years. So take a little bit of time, tell the audience about your company, and you know why you're there, because you could obviously be doing something else if you wanted. Why are you there? I
Absolutely.
think that's important.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mentioned earlier there were these times where I was really positive. I knew what I was doing the rest of my life. And coaching college cross country and track, I was also working at a running store part time to kind of cover costs, as you do as a student. And I got connected to one of Superfeet's original employees, Jeff Gray. He came to do a medical night in the store that I was working in, and we kind of stayed in contact. And it was one of those things where, yeah, at some point down the line, Superfeet, we may be looking to add some resource or whatever. And it was never something that I sought out. Oddly enough, this would have been probably 2008. I had been wearing Superfeet just as a user since 2001. So I was already a huge believer and proponent of the product, and then had been selling it for almost 3 years, working retail at that point as well. And so that just started this snowball of, man, I love Superfeet. This is something that I'm passionate about. If I could find a way to combine these things, it would be amazing. So that would be another one of those turns and pivots where I went from looking for my next coaching job to, man, this could be like a career redefining moment here. But then having to think about, man, Superfeet's in Washington State. If I take a job with Superfeet, am I gonna have to move to Washington? And so that was some of the conversations that we had. And ultimately, my fiance at the time, now my wife, and I just had this conversation that was just like, it just feels like this would be a career defining thing for me. If we can make this work with Superfeet, it's worth the move and kind of uprooting our young lives and heading out to Washington. So Superfeet started as a company, though, officially in 1977 as the sports medicine division of Northwest Podiatric Lab. So our two founders, Dr. Chris Smith and Dennis Brown, really through all of their work, both running Northwest Podiatric Lab, Dr. Smith taught podiatry at the California College of Podiatric Medicine for about 30 years. And so basically what they wanted to do is they saw this huge gap between the number of people that they could help through their work at Northwest Podiatric Lab versus the number of people out there, right? So there was all of these people that could need help, but maybe didn't need a full custom device. And so they really started Superfeet with this basic idea of like, people deserve something better and we can help them. And that's really been the foundation of our company is how can we help more people and get what we like to refer to as Superfeet shape underneath more people's feet. And ultimately, that's the mission of our company officially, is to be the essential life-changing shape underneath every foot. And that's something that we take really seriously and to heart and work really hard at every single day.
Well, a large percentage of the population is aware of orthotics. That's a good segue into you explaining to us how they work to stabilize our bodies and why why would I be a customer of Superfeet?
Absolutely, it's a great question. And you mentioned, hey, there is an awareness, but I would tell you ultimately that awareness is really not large enough because we have on average about 75% of the adult population in the United States regularly experiences foot pain. And with that in mind, somewhere between 10 and 20% have used or are currently using something like an insole or a custom foot orthotic and something like that. So as a result, there's this huge gap of knowledge and awareness. The weirdest thing about your feet for most people, and it kind of sequentially moves up the body after that, but especially your feet, is this the only really part of your body where when people experience regular pain, it's just kind of normalized in their head. Your feet hurt at the end of the day. It's just kind of an expectation. If I stand on my feet,
are
they're going to hurt.
Yeah.
If you were just fighting yourself every day with your shoulder hurting, you wouldn't just ignore it. You'd be like, man, I need to go to the doctor. There's something wrong with my shoulder. I got to figure that out. But foot pain, just because it is so prevalent, it just becomes part of a lot of people's everyday life and expectation. And especially then when we get talking about things like the worker, we know that pain and discomfort can be incredibly distracting at work. And then that leads to not only the general pain and discomfort associated specifically with that, but it's also distracting for their own safety, the safety of their coworkers, they start thinking about ways that they can avoid the pain, as well as, or maybe instead of taking care of themselves and or executing their job at the highest level possible and the safest way possible. And so ultimately what insoles like Superfeet are able to do is to, as you mentioned, certainly add stability in and around major joints, starting with the foot, because the foot's really the foundation of the body. If we're able to provide a good foundation for the body to stand on, to work on, to walk on, to run on, hop, skip, jump, whatever it might be, we really give you a head start on being able to, the phrase that I like to use is be comfortable and confident on your feet, because if you are both comfortable and confident, it really gives you that literal and metaphorical foundation to do whatever it is that you need to do. So the insole basically works to help redistribute forces underneath the plantar surface of the foot. And in doing that, helps to kind of increase surface area, it increases balance, it increases that proprioceptive feedback that you're getting from the bottom of your foot. And then in doing that, has a significant impact on further up the kinetic chain. And we've seen that certainly from our own internal research, from our partnership research studies, including a recent one that we did with a manufacturer here in Washington, in which we looked at just the general results of workers wearing our products. So this is, they manufacture Genie scissor lifts. So some of these things are going up, almost 100 feet in the air, really big pieces of machinery that they're working on. And when we started this, 97% of the employees that we surveyed had at least some amount of foot pain, 95% had some amount of back pain, and 76% of people had a significant amount of foot pain, which clinically on a scale of 1 to 10 is like a 4 or higher, and 70% had significant back pain. And so after wearing the Superfeet product for 30 days, we saw 100% of the people that participated in the study had a reduction of either foot pain, foot, back, knee pain, or so one of those,
some
or
combination thereof.
Yeah. And so 80% had less foot pain, 84% had less back pain, and 75% had less total overall body discomfort. And so one of the things that we see most frequently is that you can do a lot to relieve pain and discomfort for a very short period of time. You can take something that's really soft and squishy, and put it underneath somebody's foot, and maybe for the day they'll feel better. But that benefit tends to evaporate pretty quickly. And so that's why we wanted to not say, hey, after a day or a week or 2 weeks, how does it feel? We surveyed them again after 30 days. So any sort of acclimation period would be over, any sort of initial kind of response would be over. And so we wanted to see really what was a little bit more realistic representation of the benefit the product was going to provide.
Well, I'm going to just jump right in, since you were talking about the evaluations that you all have done. Ergonaut Nation is quite aware of the boot evaluation you conducted for us on the military boots. We're on a mission, obviously, to let the right people know that, our soldiers don't have to, perform those critical duties in our defense, in pain, foot pain, back pain, hip pain, like you say, it's all connected. So could you give us a brief snapshot of your findings as it relates to the Ergonaut study that you did?
Absolutely. So again, was really excited to be able to participate in that project. It is something, like you said, that is incredibly important to a lot of us in terms of making sure that our servicemen and women have the tools that they need to be able to execute their jobs, because ultimately their jobs are incredibly important, being able to keep everyone safe and execute the things that they're being asked to do. One of those key components, obviously, is footwear, for all the things that we just mentioned earlier, in terms of your foot being the foundation of your body and being able to support it, particularly in a military application, because oftentimes there's a lot of extra stuff that they're utilizing, carrying, and being asked to kind of support in terms of the way that their body and ultimately their footwear is being asked to deal with. And so the boot that we looked at had some challenges with it for sure. And so one of those was certainly the sock liner or the insole that comes inside of that boot was pretty flimsy. So not going to be able to withstand the everyday stresses of just regular body weight over a period of time, much less anything that involved wearing gear of any sort of weight. In addition to that, just general dimensions of the boot, there were some challenges. So it's a little bit more narrow. It has a pretty strong toe cap in that boot, which is great for protecting your toes when you hit it on something firm. But the narrowness of that boot is super challenging for anybody that has maybe a little bit more flexible foot, where you might put your body weight on there and your foot's going to splay out a little bit. Anybody that has a moderate to more than kind of a little bit wider than average foot. And then on top of that, when we just look at some of the overall fit characteristics inside of the boot, I think there's just some challenges for that boot being able to accommodate the wide range of feet that need to go into it, because ultimately this is a standard issue boot. So that means it's getting given to everybody, right? So we need it to fit as many people as possible. And I think there were several of those just general dimensions and characteristics that kind of limited how well it was going to work for as many people as we needed to.
We're going to move into talking a little more about Matt right now. So, one of the things that I finish up with, as far as questions for you go, what do you want your legacy to be in your, health and safety, welfare profession? What are you working for?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, legacy questions are always, I won't say always, sometimes they're complicated to answer, right? But I think ultimately what I would love my legacy to be is something I talk about with our product team as a whole quite frequently is, we have a greater responsibility to not only our organization, we're a product focused company. We're driven by the products and the fact that they work. So we have this greater responsibility to show up and be great every single day, because there's a lot of people depending on us doing our jobs really, really well. And so whether that is our coworkers at Superfeet, whether it's the retailers that sell our products and depend on those to be available and on time and function the way that they need them to, the end consumer that's, we get hundreds and hundreds of reviews that talk about, hey, I wanted to be able to do this thing. I had this pain, that's this discomfort, and I couldn't. But now when I wear Superfeet, it is helping me be able to get back to doing what I'm trying to do, wanted to do, wished I could do. And so that really is probably the foundation of how I'd answer that. I want my legacy to be that we worked hard to help people. Helping people is essentially what I describe to people as my job. My job is to help people, whether it's inside of Superfeet in our local community and the community at large that is going to be using our products. It's something that I take extremely personally and really seriously. And it's also something that is a responsibility that I'm excited every single day to get out of bed and get working on. And that's what keeps me motivated every single day.
So if you're listening to this podcast, you are either a member of Ergonaut Nation or interested in being a member of Ergonaut Nation. So I want you to shout this from the rooftops. I want you to email folks if you're listening. Matt, we are looking forward to your presentation and your training on our next mission control. That is our offering to the health and wellness community to educate folks. You're just another in a long list of experts that we've had. We're going to be focusing on the anatomy of an injury series. It's scheduled for September the 21st at 6 o'clock in Mountain Time. And I'm telling you, if I can be on it, I will be. I have a fairly busy day job. So, but I can tell you that I absolutely would love to hear what you have to say, because your enthusiasm for what you do, Matt, it clearly shines through. And man, if you're that enthusiastic about your job, you're awesome at your job. So it's been a wonderful, time with you today. I appreciate your time very much. We always ask if you have a favorite charity or anything that you would like our listeners to consider. And if you do, feel free to use this as a platform to do that. And if not, I hope that you would consider coming back to seeing us sometime. So, do you have a favorite charity?
Absolutely. So through our work with Superfeet, we have a 1% program where we give back 1% of our top line revenue to a variety of different causes. And one of the charities that we have worked with for several years now that I just think has an amazing mission is the Fisher House. So they build houses in and around major hospitals that provide comfortable places for family members of active duty military and veterans to stay and be near their loved one while they're receiving that treatment. And I just think it is such a crucial component of caring for our servicemen and women, during their service or potentially after their service, and creating that sense of community and connectedness, because we know that that is always one of the biggest challenges when they return from service. And so we love working with them. They're an amazing organization, and so that's always one that I like to highlight.
All right, thanks so much. Ladies and gentlemen, this was an interview with Matt Gooch, CPED Vice President of Product and Innovation at Superfeet, and it's been a good one. I have really enjoyed it. Thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was awesome.
All right. All right, folks, please like, share the podcast down at the bottom. Also, please feel free to leave your suggestions, your criticisms, whatever you want to write to us. Our Chief Visionary Officer, Steve Davis, reads all of them personally, and don't be surprised if you leave a comment and you get an email back from Steve, because he is hands-on with everything that we do at Ergonauts. He and our CEO, Nicole, are very active in the day-to-day workings of the company. So again, thanks, Matt, and you have a great night, everybody. Be good to each other.